Hello everyone, it's realBluTV here, and we're going to do a little quick recap, little breakdown of what happened in some of the matches in the CMG 8K qualifier number 1. That's right, qualifier number 1. I'm going to put on the screen right now the dates for the rest of the qualifiers. If you want to get involved, if you're trying to win $8,000, each qualifier is an additional $250 prize pool as well. So make sure you sign up, get in those, and as best as you possibly can. We had some really great matches, and we saw a lot of things. There were some things that were to be expected, you know, like STK, Shoot to Kill, being in the grand finals. Thankfully, the bracket worked in the favor of the viewers, so we got to see them go against the other top team in the North American region that we expected to be in that grand finals with STK, which was Tier 1. That could have went either way. Tier 1 ended up losing 2-1 to STK in the best of 3 series. STK Tier 1, they've been going at it for a while, and even if you go back in the past, STK was kind of struggling against Tier 1, especially when they had to play on maps like Windward or even Lockdown. Lockdown is arguably Tier 1's best map so far. I think Tier 1, if you broke it down to an attack and a defense, they play the best of both on that map. I think STK really struggles on Windward up until this point. They played it beautifully throughout the tournament against some very good teams as well. And they even beat Tier 1 in the finals of the best of 3 CMG tournament on Sunday night before the qualifiers and had to play both Windward and Lockdown. So that was good practice for them up against their best opponent. So that was very, very fortunate for them to be able to practice those maps against that exact team too. But Tier 1 did play super well themselves, but they did make some minor mistakes, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about some of the things that we knew we were going to see or we didn't expect to see, and a little bit of a quick look there. And some of those things are the rogues. We saw a lot of Lancer play. We saw a lot of Talon play. We saw a lot of Chalk play. These are 3 things that if you are coming from the EU region or you watch a lot of the Roco showdown in the phase 1 with the European region, Europe doesn't play Lancer as much as NA does. NA, you can pretty much guarantee there's going to be a Lancer. If not in a mirror matchup, there's going to have one team in every matchup pretty much that runs a Lancer. They love running that Lurker Lancer, the entry Lancer as well. They try to get those good flanks going. But EU doesn't utilize Lancer at the same rate that NA does. So we knew we were going to see a lot of Lancer. We knew we were also going to see a lot of Chalk. We don't see Chalk being played in the EU region as well, and it's mainly an NA thing right now. He brings some good utility. He has the flashbangs. I know a lot of people early on in Roco thought that Glitch would be very good. The SMG is the same one as Talon's, and usually you go with the DMR, the Deadeye for Talon. So that kind of took him out. Also, his secondary weapon is a shotgun. Not many shotguns, if at all any, are being played in the comp scene right now. So that kind of faded him off. He also, his EMP does not destroy trophies, and Trench was really good in the meta at the time. So that kind of put Glitch down on the list a little bit more. So they started playing Chalk. They still get the flashbangs. They get some of those good perks as well. And he's pretty much like a tank. You link him with the Dahlia. He has even 2 ways to be rezzed without even touching him. So it just provides a lot of utility and a lot of tankiness for the team. He can get those entry frags that are needed, and he provides some utility with the revive himself, linking to Dahlia. The dodge roll while he's down helps Dahlia out in some situations as well. So we saw a lot of Chalk plays, especially being linked to Dahlias. Another thing that we saw a lot of was Talon. Talon in the NA region is being used a lot. Now, when it comes to characters that reveal, like Talon and Dallas, we see Dallas starting to pop up in the NA just a tiny bit. We saw Ghost use them from STK. We saw, I believe, 1 or 2 other Dallases come out and some other NA teams yesterday in the qualifier as well. But we see Dallas popping up more than Talon in the EU side of things. Meanwhile, on the NA side of things, the people who aren't brave enough to use Dallas just yet are using Talon, just like Nash from Tier 1. And they're playing it the way I thought it would be played before anyone started playing Talon this way. And that is, you throw your sensor dart, and because of his passive that Mag Gloves, he's able to grab his dart from a distance, so he doesn't have to walk up to it and pick it up, which creates these angles that you can play. And I don't really know what we should call this strat yet, but you throw the dart, you check the radar, no one's there, you pull it back, you move up, you do it again, you keep repeating the re-dart. You just keep doing it over and over again, and you eventually can find out the intel that you need for the enemy players, but at the same time, you can push your team forward. And they were doing that beautifully. Tier 1, Nash on the Talon, on attack. They were doing that on Skyfell in the grand finals and in the semifinals. Grand finals didn't work out the best because they ended up losing that set. And they didn't do it on Skyfell in that one. But on Skyfell in the semifinals, they played that beautifully, and they were able to get some good attack rounds in their favor because of it. Some other things that we saw was, going back to glitch, we saw some of the lower end teams trying to utilize glitch. One of the most notable teams that I saw doing that was Status Quo. And I'll talk about them in a little bit, but they were trying the glitch. So you can even go into one of their players' streams during the tournament and in between their games, and they were still talking about the glitch. I totally agree. He could work out in certain situations, but I don't see him working out in high tier comp play right now. I think maybe he needs a couple changes or something. But also, one of the teammates rebutted and said, I'd rather have you on Dahlia. It's a stronger gun, the MXR he's talking about, the DMR, and brings a lot more utility that is useful in the current state of the game. So a lot of lower end teams trying to bring out the glitch didn't really work out well. We'll talk about Status Quo a little bit more in the another big thing that we barely saw was Ronin play. We saw some teams pull out Ronin. We didn't see any teams pull out Ronin really until we got to the semifinals and the grand finals. We saw Ghost playing the Ronin. We saw the Ronin come out for some other teams that had to face STK in Tier 1 as well. I believe Remix Carries was one of those teams, if I'm not mistaken. But this is another one of those composition debates between NA and EU. EU, they don't like Lancer. They don't like Chalk as much as NA does. Not even close. They love Ronin. They think Ronin's ability is one of the most overpowered abilities at this moment, and that it could use a nerf even. The reason why I say this is because, if you look for examples, there's a lot of abilities for rogues that kind of deny space or push back of enemies or deny them entry points. Like Vi's Poison, Barbed Wire from Trench, Anvil Shield even. And then you look at someone like Ronin, who, by the way, before I say this, other than Scorch's ability is a little different. You got to hit your shots, obviously. It does help you get the kill. But with Ronin's ballistic knife, you can pretty much throw it on the ceiling, the floor, the wall. You can throw it as a landmine. If someone walks past it, it explodes. You can throw it and then instantly shoot it to get downs. You can even hit people directly with it, and it'll still explode and get some downs with that as well. So they really love that knife. They use the Ronin as the entry and the lurker, but we don't see that as much in NA. We started to see it in the semifinals and the finals again, but I'd like to see more Ronin play, as I think some of these teams could really open up their playbooks with the Ronin. She has the smoke screen, she has the nades, she has one of the best ARs in the game with the KA-30, and I think she has some decent perks with her as well, especially with tracker rounds paired with the smoke bomb that she can bring to the table herself, not just someone else's smoke, which can also help out their team well. And speaking of Fixer, we saw a lot of Fixer, as to be expected. He's the best character in the game right now, even after his nerfs. His gun used to do 70 to the body, now it does 60. But 2 shots in the amount of time that it takes to release the 2 from that gun, the tiers clip, it's still devastating. You can still get a 2-shot down. It shoots faster than any DMR in the game right now. His goggles are pretty much so strong, especially if your team and the Fixer can utilize smokes together and he doesn't have to rely on his own smokes. He has C4, which is very strong. He has good perks like armor too, so even the enemy Fixer can't just one-shot him or double tap him. He's able to get a good armor set, and he's able to, if he's able to get some good rounds to get the armor, especially early in the half. So we saw a lot of Fixer play, and I was pretty excited about it. But let's take a break here, and let's take a look at some of the notable teams that I wanted to talk about. So some of the notable teams coming in are Always Evolving, Bonvoki, Forcible Dolphin, which is one of those CMG names, Give No Respect, PMP, Rebel Nation, Red Blanket, Rico Boys, Shoot to Kill, Status Quo, Strong Trough, another one of those CMG names, Tier 1, Unlucky, and Yastu. Now, some of these teams, you may be saying, why do you even care about them? So, quickly, I'm going to go over these and talk about them. But let's jump into the bracket, and we could take a look at the bracket while I break these down. We're not really going to talk about Tier 1 or STK very much as a notable team. We expected them to be in the top. We expected them to be as good as they are. They both went to the finals. But let's talk about these teams here for a second that I said are notable. We have, and some of these actually lost pretty early. I mean, Rebel Nation, they lost in round 2, and so did Yastu. Yastu was on my list because if you know anything about the past CMGs that have happened, Swift, Rimunez, I'm not sure how to say his name, Pathetic, and Exorism, they're kind of 4 guys that have been playing in as many CMG Rogue Company tournaments as possible. So that was one of the teams that was notable to me and kind of stood out looking at the rosters and the team names immediately. We've seen this team name a bunch of times, and I was curious to see, where they end up in the bracket and how well they can do against some of these other teams that maybe are just popping up today, or some of these other teams like Tier 1 and STK that are so far advanced at this point. Another one of those teams was Bonvoki with Chapo. Most notably Chapo, Traps, and Snows from that team. I've seen Who's Dat A and Nikki Tyne play a little bit as well. But that's another one of those teams that's been grinding these SMGs. And again, Rebel Nation is one of those teams too. Embassy, Maple, RNA, Awkward. Not sure who Meza FGC is. Maybe I've seen them before, but the other 3 names on there, I've seen them in these CMGs plenty of times, and that's why they were one of those teams. And the same goes with Strong Trough with Razeco, Purpose Raw, Lurksy, and Hyduck. Hyduck has gotten some good placements in some CMGs before with some pickup teams. I know Purpose Raw has been just as successful as Hyduck. So some of these teams are just CMG grinders, and that's the reason why I was looking out for them. So it wasn't just, oh man, these kids are cracked. I got to watch these players. I know a lot of you out there that you just want to stick to watching Tier 1. You just want to stick to watching STK, but I just love watching some of these underdogs and seeing what they can do and how they improve on a day-to-day and a week-to-week basis. Unfortunately, though, some of these teams did not make it that far. Rebel Nation going out in round 2. We had Yastu going out in round 2. Yastu is actually it was more surprising to see them go out in round 2 than anybody else on this list right now. Of course, we have Shoot to Kill on there. They came in first. Tier 1's on there. They came in second. We could take a look at Unlucky, who ended up losing in round 3. So did Strong Cho. We talked about Strong Cho with Hyduck and Purpose Raw, though. Unlucky and Give No Respect, they lost in round 3 themselves as well. Unlucky is another one of those teams that is grinding these CMGs, but I believe some of these players have actually won maybe 1, 2, maybe even 3 of these CMG tournaments. Maybe it was one of the nights where teams like STK, Tier 1, all the top teams, they took a night off or they were playing ranked or something. But Unlucky has iHoppies, Phil Wins Bigley, Scott is Talented, and Abba Smalls. Now, the first 3 names in there, I've seen them play before. They're not bad players. They're not great players. They're pretty decent players. But again, that's another reason why I was looking at this team. How have they increased their play style since the last time I saw them in a CMG tournament that wasn't an $8,000 qualifier? Because this is the one that everybody wants to perform in. But those little CMGs, those are like guaranteed scrims, and sometimes you can get some good games out of those. I mean, if we move into round 4 now here, it's starting to whittle down, of course. And some of the teams that I saw in round 4 that were on my notable list were Forcible Dolphin 7290, one of those CMG generated names. And this team, it was pretty, it stood out to me because I know these guys. Okay, we got Dez, Roman, Dethroner, and T-Mac. And those of you who don't know, all 4 of these players have come from Paladins in the past. Roman has been one of those console grinders. He actually just got a PC, so now he's playing on PC. He's got the better frame rate, and he's able to possibly make better plays and increase his play as well with the equipment upgrade. Then we have Dethroner. Dethroner used to play for Pittsburgh Knights in the PPL, which is the Paladins Pro League. He was a decent tank player, and now he comes into this game using that experience from a different competitive esport. Can that help him? He was making some plays as well. And this team, for getting top 16 and pretty much not being able to scrim against some other top teams as much as they'd like, or maybe get into the other CMGs for some good practice beforehand, it shows that these players are gifted not only in the game but together as chemistry because they've known each other for so long. So now all you need to do is just keep improving. The chemistry is there between the 4, I believe. I mean, it looks like it's there, but they just need to keep improving. amongst themselves and get some good scrims. And these tournaments are the things that will help them. And there's 8 qualifiers, so don't worry. They've still got some time. But the other players, Dez, I mean, he was a big Console Paladins player as well. And T-Mac, he was, one of the top support players in not only the Paladins minor league, but, he kind of was trying to move into the pro league. He played a very long time. He was very good. He was one of those players that I could see going to any game and still having some success, whether it be a game like Overwatch or Paladins, or maybe he can go to a shooter like Rogue Company, or maybe even Apex or something like that requires that high skill gunfire. But that was one of the teams that I was looking at. Forcible Dolphin, they ended up losing in round 4 though. They actually went up against PMP, which is another one of those teams that was on my radar, and they ended up losing in the quarterfinals. And that team, it's a little mind-boggling to watch that team play, because one day they'll look bad. For the best example to explain how PMP plays, I mean, on Saturday they were in a CMG tournament and they could have been trying new things out, but they didn't play Fixer, which I understand. If you're trying new things out, that's not the qualifier. It's okay to do that. Those are guaranteed scrims. You can try those. And they ended up losing, and they didn't make it that deep into the bracket. The next day they come back on Sunday and they're trying things again in the best of 1 tournament, and they lose again. And I believe they went up against a team. I don't remember if it was STK or Tier 1 off the top of my head. They didn't do so great, right? And they were trying new things once again. Then Sunday night, again in the best of 3 tournament, they took Tier 1 to round 13 in 2 of their games. They ended up losing both of them, but they played the Fixer, and they were taking Tier 1. I mean, maybe even Tier 1 was trying some things. Maybe that's why the game got extended to round 13 both times. But still, there is room for improvement for PMP. They are playing pretty well when let me say this. When they want to play well, they play well. But when they don't play well, they look completely lost. Sometimes they play a little bit too slow, and when they should be playing fast. And when they do want to play fast, they can't really get the picks that they need, whether it's on offense or defense. So PMP, they still have some things to work on. I still consider them one of the top teams in NA right now. Korea 10 on Fixer. He's been playing pretty well. We look at some of their other players as well, in La Hunter, Zeal, Spring Hour. I think all 3 of them have some potential to be very good players. Hunter and Spring Hour, they have potential to be good players. I've seen Hunter make some plays. We've seen Spring Hour make a couple plays. Korea's made some plays on the Fixer himself, but I misspoke there. Zeal doesn't have the potential to be a good player. He has the potential to be a great player. I think that's the best player on the team right now. And actually, PMP is one of the only teams that I know that are a top team in NA right now, or EU even, that are running Dima, and they're running it semi-successfully. They lost with it yesterday in the qualifier. They used it on attack on Icarus, and when they were facing, I believe, a Tier 1 it was. Yeah, they were facing Tier 1 in the quarterfinals. They were on Icarus, and they were using the Dima on attack, but Tier 1, of course, had the trench, so it kind of delayed things on that A bomb site. With the trophies being there, even if they were able to try and bait them out, Tier 1, a good enough team to recognize when to not push in and hold their positions so that they can't get hit by that Dima grenade. But if you go back to Sunday night, they were playing Dima on attack on lockdown, and I thought maybe they were just trying this out. But if they're playing Dima on attack, I mean, Zeal's a crazy enough player. He might just be comfortable playing this Dima, and he's playing it fairly well. As at the time on that lockdown map, they were able to win that. They played very aggressive, and I'm okay if they pull out that Dima on attack on lockdown, because that means you want to go B site. You don't want to play against the sniper in the A site outside the prison. So you want to go inside there. You want to play with that Dima, try and trap that team in red maybe and get some kills or get some good nade damage off that Dima ability inside the red, to the right of the point coming from the attacker side. But also, if there's a trench, it's going to be a little difficult, especially when 3rd trophy comes online. They didn't have a trench. They weren't going against a trench on that lockdown map, so it kind of worked in their favor. I believe they were going against an Anvil, and Anvil only has 2 trophies, but that's when you double upgrade the trophy. When you upgrade the trophy to 2 upgrades, and also I don't, with Trench, I see them prioritizing trophies more than some other things maybe. But with Anvil, I don't see that prioritization coming through. I'm seeing a C4 coming through usually beforehand, before you get you might have a trophy at that time, but you're not going to double upgrade your trophy before you have C4. You want your LMG. You're going to get some perks as well. So Anvil is starting to shift into the meta for the NA side of things. That's another one of those picks that's been in EU for a while now. I mean, look at Astaroth Esports. They were using the Anvil Shield for not just defuse retakes, but they were using it on offense and getting great bomb plants with it as well on multiple maps. But that's beside the point. So again, Dima, Zeal, I'm okay with him playing it on attack. You just got to make sure you are certain that team's not going to run a trench. If they run an Anvil, it's still okay. If they don't run either, I mean, you might be just devastating for Zeal on the offensive side with that. Some of the other teams, though, if we look in the quarterfinals, Strikeout Boys, they were kind of one of those surprising teams. Actually, there was a couple surprising teams. All Caps Lock, they ended up losing to Tier 1 in round 4, but they played great. I mean, they surprised me. I didn't expect them to make it as far as they did. I mean, that's Crixium, Rome, Liddy, Jay Snoozy. I mean, I knew Rome DMV was a good player. I hadn't heard of the other 3 on his team. Well, I've heard of Liddy, but I haven't seen them play. But they played pretty well against Tier 1. They lost 2-0 in the best of 3, but still, they impressed me to the point where they became one of the surprising teams to me in the tournament. Another one, actually, who lost to Tier 1 in round 3 as one of those surprising teams was Space Station Gaming, because that's PMAC Unit Battalion, and I believe it's Lamite or Blamite. But those are actually some people that work for SSG. So when you look at the bracket and you see Space Station Gaming and you see that logo, you might get a little hesitant and like, oh my goodness, that's a top tier org. They have a team already. Things might, be a little spicy there, but not to say they're not good players. They were good players. They beat Solar Sox in round 2. They were able to make it out into the round 3, but going against Tier 1, that is a tough thing for them to handle. So shout out to the SSG and my boy Unit as well. Another team other than Strikeout Boys and All Caps Lock was Remix Carries, Sagang, you know what I'm saying? And Locked In Roco. Now, the reason why Locked In Roco was a surprise to me is because they've been changing their roster kind of behind the scenes, or maybe I just haven't been paying attention to Locked In that much. But if you look at them, they have Geo Royals. He's a good player. They have Donnie G still. They have Jay Gravity. And from what I was told, I thought Jay Gravity was like a package deal with a person named Goxley. But Goxley, nowhere to be seen in the first qualifying tournament on any roster, 85 teams. So where's Goxley? I mean, Jay Gravity's now playing for Locked In. They don't have Paid Boy anymore either. I don't know what happened there. Paid Boy was found on a different roster, or I saw him on a different roster. I can't remember which one off the top of my head, but they didn't make it as far as maybe Paid Boy would have wanted. But Sensei Laz as well, I don't know who that is. I do know the other 3 players are Locked In Roco, Gio, Donnie, and Jay. And they played pretty decently. Maybe this is the first time they were playing together, so they've got some chemistry things to work out, maybe some role and some composition things to figure out. But making it to round 4 is no bad thing to dwell upon. I mean, there's 7 more qualifiers. 16 teams are going to make it. I'm fairly certain Locked In Roco could possibly be one of those teams. You know what I'm saying? Cincy V2, Lonnie QP, Illusion, and My Peace Story. So I don't know any of these players except for Lonnie QP. I've seen him play against some people on their streams a couple times before in some CNGs and stuff like that. Some people have, I've heard some whispers that Lonnie is pretty disgusting. I wasn't very sure. I watched this team play, and oh my goodness, they're pretty good. And they made it pretty far. So big ups to that team. I want to see some more of them. I hope they return, and I hope they keep playing as well as they do and keep and then the last 2 teams that surprised me, Sagang and Remix Carry. Sagang had to go up against, I believe, STK. And that's a tall order. But at the same time, they played great. They lost 2-0, but they were able to take some rounds off STK. They were able to even give them a scare on one of the maps. And I believe they were up 2-0 at one point in one of the games. So they were playing good. They were playing fast. If you're playing fast and successfully fast against STK, that's good. I mean, if your name's not tier 1 and you're able to take some rounds off of STK playing fast successfully, that's good. Especially when you have players like Ghost and Bop who just want to go in and destroy things on STK and in a fast-paced environment as well. MTT on that Sagang team kind of impressed me. We have River, Marshalis, and I believe it's Fico. Marshalis, a couple good plays from him. I know River was playing some good support, covering the back as well. But MTT, one of the players that really stood out to me for Sagang. Hope to see some more of them as well. Remix Carries, another team that surprised me. They made it to the semifinals, and they went up against Tier 1, and they lost 2-0. The only time we saw on the CMG stream a 3-game set was STK versus Red Blanket, and I'll talk about Red Blanket here in a second because that was actually one of the teams that I had jotted down to keep an eye on, but I didn't know what team name they'd be using, so it took me a while to figure out what team was Red Blanket, and when I found out, I knew that was one of the teams that I had written down and put a little star next to. But let's talk about Remix Carries. Corrupt, Remix, Delana, Sifter. I don't know any of these guys. I don't know any of these players. But when they were playing Tier 1, they were giving T1 a scare for a little bit there. And that's when I noticed this team's good. I've got to watch this team. Actually, if we go back and we look at some of these in my notes here, trying to figure out where I have this, because I believe we did watch Remix Carries versus T1 on the CMG stream, and it was a good set. Oh, maybe we didn't. We might have watched STK versus Red Blanket, but I knew I had some things down. Oh, we did watch the second game of Remix Carries versus T. That's what it was. They played first game off stream. We watched the second game. But they played well for the one game I saw. I mean, if you give Tier 1 a scare for a second, or maybe even 2 or 3 rounds, you did good, even if you lost. I mean, all these teams were so good, man. It was so great to watch these. But anyways, moving on. I mean, there was another team. Status Quo. I promised you we were going to talk about them in a little bit. So Status Quo, actually, they ended up losing in round 4. They were, trying some things out. They lost to Strikeout Boys. Strikeout Boys, Mango, Wix, Blicky, and Devoltic. I've heard of Wix, Blicky, and I believe Mango before. They played pretty well. But Status Quo is one of those teams I jotted down to look at and to watch as much as I could and see how well they did, because they have some Halo players, some former Halo players, and one of them, most notably to me, is Flamesword. I believe his name in game is OG Flamesword, if you are trying to figure out who I'm talking about. And Flamesword is actually, he was doing this throwback 2v2 Halo tournament at DreamHack Atlanta back in 2018 when I was on the desk for Paladins, and I was working with Golden Boy, and we were done with Paladins for the day. Golden Boy asked me, hey, you want to watch some Halo? And I was like, yo, I've never watched Halo Esports before. He was like, all right, you're coming with me. So we went over there. He introduced me to some people, and one of the people he introduced me to was Flamesword. And for, the Halo 5 was the World Championship at the time, I believe, and that was over. That event was over, and we were watching this throwback 2v2 tournament. I think it was like Halo 3. Maybe it was Halo 2. It was Halo 3, maybe. Whichever one is like the consensus best Halo of all time. They were doing this 2v2 tournament, and one of the players on one of the teams in the finals for this was Flamesword. And there was more people watching this than there were their actual world championship. And Golden Boy was just like trying to explain to me that this is a culture for a game that is so great. And this is one of the best players of Halo all time. And I was like, all right, cool. Yeah. And for my first time watching this guy play, and that being my first Halo experience, it was amazing. So when I saw Flamesword is playing Rogue Company, I got kind of excited. And now he's on a team, Status Quo. And I watched a couple games, a couple rounds. I was mainly bouncing around between streams, so it was really hard. I'm still watching some VODs back now so that I can collect some more notes and some more information. But I was watching his team, and again, they were talking about the glitch strat, and I think they tried him out maybe once or twice. I didn't really catch the glitch play, but I just heard them talking about it. But I mean, I think that status quo just needs to watch some more top teams and start to develop the strategies and the meta that those top teams are running. I mean, we don't really see a lot of Saint in the top teams, except for maybe we did see it with Tier 1 yesterday for one game, I believe. And then we also saw it for 2 games for STK as well. They like to run it on, I believe, defense sometimes on certain maps. So we don't, Saint was one of those characters we saw very early in the comp scene a lot, and then he started to fade away. I don't know if that's because Fixer came in, but it's also because, you just have better picks. You got the Vi pick if you want. Vi gives you that option to play slow or play fast. Doesn't matter which one. But if you want to play slow, the option's there because you have the Vi. So maybe status quo just needs to start reviewing their own VODs, watching some other teams, some top teams like STK Tier 1, and start to get a feel for what's becoming the developed meta in NA a little bit more. And maybe Flamesword can be one of the best Roco players, but I'm a fan of him, so I'm going to be a fan of this team. I'm going to keep watching this team, see how they can improve. But that's pretty much it. STK wins the tournament, Tier 1. Those 2 teams will qualify. There's 7 more qualifiers to go. We'll see who will come in and, who will continue to push the envelope in the Rogue Company scene. I'm so excited, guys. I'm so excited. I don't know if you guys are excited as me. I tried to make this video as short as possible for you guys, but also give you some good information at the same time. I didn't write any scripts or anything like that, so I'm kind of going off the dome. That's why I'm kind of like pausing in between, or, I lose my mind. But I'm also insane, so I lose my mind all the time. Yeah, so I was working on all of this, doing some roster stuff while trying to cook. I was trying to bake a pork sirloin, and I accidentally left it in there for 20 minutes extra. But it came out even better than what I was supposed to leave it in there for. So sometimes good things just come, right? And Rogue Company Comp, that's one of the good things that just came to us. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Let me know your guys' thoughts on some of these teams and some of these players in the comments below. What teams other than T1 and STK are you looking forward to watching? And who do you think the top NA teams are right now, other than Tier 1 and STK? Because we know they're great so far. If you guys, and let me know if you guys in the comments below, if you're interested in more analysis and breakdown of specific matchups. I've got some notes for like STK versus Sagang, or Tier 1 versus STK, and I've got some notes for round by round basis or even game basis. So if you guys want to see more analysis and stuff like that, let me know in the comments below. We're going to have another podcast hopefully tomorrow come out. We had an episode come out yesterday, and hopefully we can continue our Monday, Wednesday, Friday trend. It's called The Cool Down. I hope you guys check it out. And make sure you guys follow me on Twitter at realBluTV, no E in blue. And keep grinding, everyone. Can't wait to watch the rest of the qualifiers and then the main bracket. Peace out.